Okay, so I'd like to officially welcome everyone on behalf of Center for Entrepreneurship to our speaker tonight. I'm just going to start passing around a sign-in sheet just so we can get like your reason how you heard about us, just so we can figure out what's working, what's not, as well as your email, so in the future I can email you guys about future events. That'd be really great. I'll start passing this around. So we have a wonderful speaker plan for you this evening, one that I've had the pleasure of working with very closely in the recent future. And Rick Gardner graduated from JMU in 1986, and he was a management information systems and accounting major. Prior to starting his company, he had several summer jobs, including house painting, underwater plastering, and working at IBM's Federal System headquarters in Bethesda, Maryland, which is actually where I'm from. Experiences gained in these various jobs helped him confirm his love for entrepreneurship and an entrepreneurial career path as well. Over the years, he's obtained several technical certifications related to entrepreneurship and his business initiatives in his company, DCS, and the company received many recognition awards for this. Over his 20-year period as the president of his company, he grew the company to $3.5 million in annual revenue before selling the company in 2007. After selling his company, he joined JMU and serves as the Associate Director of Operations in the Office of Financial Aid and Scholarships. He also teaches business strategy in the College of Business, and he works with us at the Center for Entrepreneurship, which is really great. So tonight, we're gonna want you all to gain insight in what it's like starting a company as a JMU senior. It's gonna be fun and informative for anyone who wants to strike out on their own in the near future. Along with this, we're gonna peek into the lifestyle, mindset, and motivations of a young entrepreneur. We will discuss valuable strategies to accelerate venture success and resources JMU has for budding entrepreneurs. So without further ado, Rick Gardner.
Ooh. All right. Like I said before, I'm super glad you guys are here. I hope we're gonna have fun. You got to take a peek into the mind of an entrepreneur. It's a dark place. You might want to look too long. We have a lot in common, you and I. Well, at least you have a lot in common with JMU, Rick. Maybe not so much anymore. But in the distant past, I was just like you, JMU senior, wondering what I'm going to do with my career. All these odd jobs we'll talk about later. You know, we were very similar. You've already heard about JMU's entrepreneurial resources. Thank you, Mary Lou. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chad. Thank you, Ryan. Lots of good stuff going on. Some of you may already be entrepreneurs. You may already have businesses going. I know some of you do. Some of you may be just inquisitive about what entrepreneurship is all about. Some of you in this room are here because you're getting extra credit in a class, which is okay too. But all of you here have a lot of opportunity ahead of you. Your whole careers are ahead of you. And some of you are actually probably sitting in this room and saying, I heard those credentials. Rick's not all that much. You know, I could do better than Rick. I think after 20 years of running a business, it should be generating more than $3.5 million in revenue. That's not very much. And so that brings me to the reason that I'm here. So that's the reason I'm here. That's the reason the Center for Entrepreneurship is here. It's to help you, help the budding entrepreneurs become even more successful than they would be on their own. So if you think about it, you've got people like me, people like Nick, with experience, with a lot of track record behind us, solely focused on giving back and helping people get their businesses up and running, get their innovations working. So it's good news. Hopefully, the Be Better Than Rick slide's already passed. Hopefully you will eventually be much better than Rick. That would be awesome for me. We have a series of seminars. So this is BYOB, not bring your own bottle, be your own boss. We have a Be Your Own Boss seminar series. So this is the first one we've ever done, and it's very exciting to actually not be talking to an empty room. I don't know, it's very odd. We invited 20,000 people to come here today. The room holds 110, and we've got just the right number of people here. So it's very exciting. Our first one, it's working out okay. November 12th, David K. will be the entrepreneur speaking instead of me. Super successful, uber successful, super duper successful JMU grad. Actually the same age as I am. Allie was nice, very nice to say I graduated in 1986. She glossed over the fact that I should have graduated in 1985. We'll have a third seminar in our series. We're going to try to do 3 a semester. That's going to be in December, and we're not quite sure what that's going to be yet. So anyway, I'm like you, you're like me. So going in the Wayback Machine, when I was your age, when I was in college, I was a painter. I painted at Georgian Colonies off Georgia Avenue in Rockville. Anybody familiar with Rockville, Georgian Colonies, near Leisure World? There's this whole townhouse complex back there. I was in college. I needed a job. I heard they were hiring laborers. I said, I'm a laborer. I'm going to go out there. I went up there to the manager of the laborers. He says, I'm not hiring laborers. I was like, darn, that's $5 an hour. That was good money. He says, but the painters are hiring, and they pay $15 an hour. I said, oh, yeah, that's it. So I went to the manager of the painters. I said, hi, I'm here. I'm a painter. I'm here to paint. He says, that's great. So he gave me a bucket of paint and a paintbrush. He says, go paint these shutters. So I started painting these shutters, and about 5 minutes later, he calls me down. He says, son, you're no painter. I said, you're right, but I really need a job. He says, how about a painter's helper, $3.50 an hour, cash on Friday? I said, I'm your man, I'm your man, I'm your man. So I'm telling you this for a reason. So the newest guy on the crew, right, I was the newest guy on the crew, you paint the highest things. So I was painting these things up here, these gutters up here. That was my thing. I was the gutter guy, painted the gutters, tallest things. I had a 40-foot extension ladder. I carried that around by myself. You had to keep it exactly, perfectly straight, because if it started to tip, brother, get out of the way. This particular ladder that was mine for 2 years had also been run over by a truck. So when I extended that ladder and I stood at the top of that ladder and I looked down, the bottom was 3 feet over to the side. When it extended like this. So I knew I was a risk taker. I look back at this, I said, I was a risk taker from an early age. I'm standing on the top of a bent 40-foot ladder for $3.50 an hour. But I did have a health plan. So one day, the ladder started to slide, and it stopped, and my boss called me down the ladder. He says, I want you to know about our health plan. I said, well, that's good. It's a good thing to know. What's our health plan? He says, if you're on a ladder and it starts to fall, you are fired right before it hits the ground. I was like, I'll remember that. And then back up the ladder I went. So that was my first job, painting. I learned a lot about myself. I learned I was a very hard worker. I wasn't afraid to take chances. And I was not a very good painter. I learned those things. My next job, super fun. This company said, I need scuba divers to fix swimming pools. So I had special plaster and chemicals that would dry underwater. And I would drive 8 hours a day, and I would fix swimming pools all over the region. I was usually working 12 or 14 hours a day. The only problem was I didn't know how to scuba dive. So they hired me, and I said, I'm your man, I'm your scuba diver. So they hired me, and the first day of training, my trainer says, son, you're no scuba diver. I said, you were right about that. But I will be. So a good scuba diver doesn't use much air out of their tank. And I was basically hyperventilating underwater because I was freaked out. So I secretly would go and fill my tank up every day after work and not let management know, and I would pay for that. And so another example of somebody, me, being ready to work very hard, take some risks, stretch, and try to make good to my employer on my shortcomings. And I managed to do that job for 2 years. It was super fun. I actually got pretty good at it. Super tan, wonderful summers. So when I was a junior at JMU, I got a co-op job at Federal Systems Division in IBM. So it's the opposite of my previous jobs. It was a collar, formal setting, IBM. I was the college co-op that had the very important job of working in the mailroom. So I was in the mailroom, which was the best job ever, the best job ever. So twice a day I would go through this 6-story building picking up and delivering mail. I'd do it in the morning, and in the afternoon I'd do the same thing. And I became the informal communication network for the whole place. I decided where the happy hours were. I decided all these things. I would figure it out, and then I would just spread the word around, and that's the way it would go down. So that was really cool. One day, and this was before the internet was invented, before Al Gore invented the internet. One day I was bored, and I said, you know what? I'm going to declare today National Mailman Day. National Mailman Day. So I went up to the 5th floor, and I was all grouchy. And so they're like, what's wrong with you? And I said, well, everybody on the 6th floor remembered it was National Mailman Day. And they're like, oh. So then I went up on the 6th floor, did the same routine, claiming the 5th floor knew, worked my way down the building. So by the end of the day, when I was on my pickup run, I had so much candy and homemade cards and all kind of stuff. I was like, man, this is a really great job. I can even make up my own holidays. So on that job, I was like, I learned a lot about myself there. I knew I would be okay in a large organization. I knew I could fit in, I could play the game and figure out the puzzle pieces. But I also knew that I really did not want my future success to be tied to a huge organization that's virtually out of my control. I was thinking to myself, if these people are silly enough to believe it's National Mailman Day, and I'm relying on them to make this organization go, I think I would rather accept the risk and go out on my own. So that was kind of my thought processes. Does that make sense? So I did. I went out on my own. Well, I came back to school, came back to JMU. Talk a little bit about my time at JMU. So this is going to be basically like, have you ever seen like your relatives' pictures of their vacation? You know, their trip to Florida. Well, this is just background, just a slideshow of pictures of my business, just to have something going on while I talk. It's not really necessarily tied to anything. But when I was at JMU, I was treasurer of a fraternity. Treasurer of a fraternity. So being treasurer of the fraternity is like being president of the United States. You have to take blame for things that aren't necessarily your control. So the president, when the economy goes down, the president gets the blame for the economy. He's not really in charge of the economy, but he takes the blame. Well, we ran out of money in my fraternity, and guess who took the blame? The treasurer. The first person claimed I ran off with the money. I said, I'm still here. How could I run off with the money? So out of self-preservation and knowing I did not want to have an entire semester without any parties, I decided I'd figure out a way to make some money. So I came up with this idea of this alumni association. I was going to write a letter and invite all the alumni to join the alumni association for $25. But I had to send this letter out to all these people. So I went to the faculty advisor for my fraternity. He says, that's good. I've got this thing called a computer. It was an Apple III. So this is back in the Stone Age. PC had just come out, but nobody knew what it was. Apple III, and you can do a mail merge on there, and you can send your letters out computerized. I said, well, that sounds great. So we did that. We raised a bunch of money. We were back in the black. We actually had some parties. Life was good again. But I got the computer bug. That's where I got the computer bug. And you just never know. So if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a student, and you're wandering through life trying to decide if you're going to be a painter, an underwater plasterer, an IBM mail person, you just never know what might actually plug you into your future entrepreneurial endeavor. So this mail merge thing turned me on to computers. I ended up buying an Apple III. I got jobs in town. I worked for this company in town called ComputerWorks, which sold a lot of computers and stuff. And their strategy was, we need to sell computers. We can give the software away if it sells the computer. And so my strategy was, the software is where the value is. Anybody can provide a computer. So we had different strategies, but When I was in college, I wrote the software that ran Massanutton's ski lift. So it printed the lift tickets, it collected the money, it balanced the cash drawers, it made the deposit tickets for the bank, the whole 9 yards. What else did I do? I wrote a program that managed all the timeshares at Massanutton. And that's when I learned if you sell a piece of real estate 51 times, you make a lot of money. And they were making a lot of money, a lot of money. I wrote programs for manufacturing firms in town, variances on material and time variances. So I did all these things, and I was like, you know what? I'm kind of good at this. I don't really see the need to be affiliated with another firm that's not bringing value to me. I'm going to branch out on my own. That's kind of how I got started. So by this time, I was a college senior, and my partner and I decided we would start this company together. So my partner was the same faculty advisor that turned me on to the mailing list some years before. And we started this company. And we said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to bill our clients for our time, and we're going to contribute half of everything we bill to a company account. Company account. We just set it in there, and we use that for growth, or we'll see how it goes. We'll just go. So we just worked. And worked and worked and worked and worked and worked. I mean, I worked like crazy. I worked all the time I was awake. At this point in my career, I kind of knew what I wanted to do. I had that passion. I had this vision. I had this vision of what I could build, what I could do. And it was very clear to me. I saw a bigger organization. I saw clients benefiting from our work. I saw employees benefiting from working for the firm. I had this vision, and I was driven to make that happen, But it was slow. It was slow going. It seemed like it was very far off in the distance. You know, I knew where I wanted to go, but it seemed like a long way to go, So 6 months into this thing, it's May now, and I have graduated. So I'm a graduate now. I'm deciding, I have a degree. I have a degree in accounting. I have a degree in management information systems. I can go get a job that pays me pretty good money. Do I really want to start my own business or continue down this path and try to grow this business, or do I want to just take a job and make the money? So I went sailing for 10 days. Has anybody sailed to Chesapeake Bay? Super fun. So 10 days out in Chesapeake Bay, I'm trying to figure out what to do. I figure, okay, I'm going to give it a year. I come back. I'm going to give it a year. But I said, some things have got to change. I can't continue to work out of my townhouse because I will work all the time I'm awake. And I need to have a separation between work and being away from work. So that was the impetus of getting our office set up. So we got an office set up, 1,000 square foot, 2-story walk up. You had to walk up the stairs to get there. It was pretty nice. We furnished it with furniture, but not with people. So I always laugh because the first thing I did was I bought a sweater and I put it over the chair in the receptionist area. So when the UPS guy or the odd customer walked in, I would just say, hey, the receptionist is out right now. I will take care of you. There was no receptionist. And I think they probably knew, but it made me feel better. So we went on, worked a little bit harder. Things started to get better. Bound and determined to make things work. So these are the motivations and mindset behind what drove me to get up in the morning, work 12 hours, take out the trash, open the mail, do the accounting, everything from soup to nuts. I mean, it's not glory work. I mean, it's just a lot of work. If I had a support staff, I wouldn't have had to have put in so many hours, but I couldn't afford the support staff, so I just had to really work. But I was driven by this vision that I talked about earlier, what I could do. I really wasn't driven by how much I would make. It wasn't personal gain. It was this vision of building something for me personally. That was the thing that drove me, and it drove me like crazy. I was also driven by this fear of failing. And the more sweat equity I built up into this organization, the harder it was to let it fail. Harder it was to walk away, It was kind of like a very slippery slope you were on, because the more time you put in, the more effort you put in, the harder it was to see it fail. I was willing to take risks, bet on myself, and I was willing to work very, very, very hard. Some of these traits, though, really ended up being limiting factors for me. So, being entrepreneurial, I would do anything that I thought would make money. So one day, Dave Holt, who was running the Center for Entrepreneurship at the time, came to me and he says, "Hey Rick, I've got an opportunity for you. This chemistry book, this organic chemistry book, has been published and printed, but it is of no use without the accompanying workbook. The publisher's in a jam. We can do this. We can publish this chemistry workbook. We can publish this chemistry workbook and make a ton of money doing it, because there's now this program out called ChemDraw, runs on a Macintosh, and we can typeset all this on a PC instead of on an old typeset machine, do it faster, do it quicker, and really make an innovative change in this particular area of book publishing." And I said, "Okay, well that sounds great. Let's do it." So we won the contract and we got started on that. I didn't have any Macintoshes. I didn't have the software program to do the typesetting, and I didn't know anything about organic chemistry. Just didn't know. So JMU was supporting me. JMU supported me, and this is the kind of support I got back in the day. So I didn't have Nick's Labs. I didn't have Mary Lou's intellectual property protection. I didn't have friends at the Society for Entrepreneurship. I didn't have a venture creation class guiding me. I had a wink, wink, nod, nod. Here is a spare key. At night, you can let yourself into the Breeze offices at Anthony Seeger and use their Macintoshes. Like, oh, all right. That's the kind of support I got at JMU. I got the old clandestine key. So we would go in there at night and we would occupy their Macintoshes and we would work and print these pages up. We worked super hard, and we published this thing. And we worked so hard, they said, "Rick, you write the acknowledgement page." I said, "All right, I'm going to do it." So I wrote this whole paragraph on what we did. Certain amount of risk associated with applying the new process and the cooperation of all concerned essential in getting this book to press, the publisher, facility, production, blah, 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 the dedicated and professionalism of Dave Holt, Rick Gardner, Ray Stone, Karen Horn. I put my name right in there because I was like, man, we lost money on this and I worked very, very hard. I'm at least going to be acknowledged for it. So that's an example of being willing to work very hard, not being beneficial. Not being beneficial. All right. How many people have heard of Doug Burgum? Okay, that's good. So nobody knows the last line of the book, the last page of the book. I get to read you the book without worrying about you guys already knowing about Doug. So Doug and I were peers. So when I started my company, Doug started his company. A couple years in, Doug invited me out to meet him and his company out in Fargo, North Dakota. I'm going to try to stop this. So I go out there to Fargo, North Dakota. He has 30 employees. I have 4 employees. He's my supplier. He's supplying me accounting software. One of the things we did in our firm was we supplied accounting software to customers. We installed it. We set it up. We set their books up on it. We helped them run. We had 300 businesses running that were clients of ours on this accounting software. So it was a very good business to have back in the day. Doug's company wrote the software, and then he outsourced the sales and service of the software to dealers like me. So I was one of his dealers. I was one of his early dealers. I was his top dealer for 5 years in a row. So we were very close, closely aligned. I would go up there to North Dakota. I can remember standing in the old Broadway Saloon in downtown North Dakota at 2 o'clock in the morning in challenging the young Doug Burgum to one-on-one basketball the next day. That type of thing. Doug, however, had a little bit of a competitive advantage, a little bit of a difference that I didn't have. So Doug was a Stanford MBA. So he had some training on business strategy, an extra level of thought that I didn't have at the time. He also was a McKinsey consultant. So he was consulting businesses on strategy and stuff like that before he started his company. I didn't have strategy. I had work. I had opportunity, grab opportunity. Any opportunity is a good opportunity, so to speak. Doug was much more strategic. Doug and I sold our businesses the same year. Doug sold his business for $1.1 billion to Microsoft. I did not sell my business for $1.1 billion to Microsoft. And I don't want to say I'm haunted by this, because I'm not really haunted by this, but it is a very interesting experience and feeling to know that you were in the same place, same time, same opportunity, same market. You had the chance, but you didn't have the strategy. You didn't execute a strategy, and look at the difference, right? Look at the difference that has made. So that, I had my day in the sun. That's my day in the sun right there. I had my day in the sun. I ran my company. I'm happy with how it turned out. But I am driven by the possibility of helping an entrepreneur at JMU be better than Rick. Maybe not Doug. He was brilliant. I mean, he's absolutely brilliant. There's a few people like that walking on the earth. He's one of them. But I think it would be super cool for me to be able to help students shortcut their time from startup to profitability, and then think strategically and actually become something better. Provide the students today with some of the learning that Doug had at Stanford and some of the stuff he got at McKinsey, and actually help them become better than what they would be on their own. And that's the whole purpose for the Center for Entrepreneurship. That's why I'm so passionate about it. That's why Nick spends his time helping you. That's why we're here. We're trying to help students be more successful than they would be on their own. And it's hard because entrepreneurs are independent thinkers. They're independent people. So it's kind of a different behavior than they're used to doing. And their independence is what makes them entrepreneurs in the first place. So it's hard to corral them in and say, I know you're independent, but I actually have some value to share with you and I can actually help you. So it's super good that you guys are in the room and you're hearing this message, because it's the first ripple in the pond, and we're trying to get this message to go across campus and get people to understand that we are here to help and we actually have value to bring. My company's done. I'm no longer JMU Rick. I'm old Rick. So my opportunity now to make a difference is not through anything I'm going to do personally, but it's by helping other people. So maybe during the course of my tenure at JMU, next 15, 20 years, if I could help students and then have them and the value of their companies maybe add up to what Doug did, that would be fantastic. That would be super for me. I tell my class, I'll tell you guys, if you start a business and we're able to help you and you become super successful and you want to donate a building back to JMU, I would be honored to have a plaque on the bathroom stall that says, Rick helped me make it. So let me just back up a little bit. Was that interesting to you guys? Was that good? That's good. So Center for Entrepreneurship brings some value. We have mentors. We have entrepreneurs willing to help guide you, keep your train on the tracks, keep you out of the weeds, stop you from publishing chemistry workbooks. We also have space here, this collaborative space, and it's underutilized like a lot of things on campus are underutilized. And I'm just going to put this thought out there. So, are you familiar with the network effect, how that works? So if you're the only one with a telephone, it has very little value because you can't call anybody else. They don't have telephones. So the more people who have telephones, the more valuable the telephone becomes. Same thing with Facebook. Facebook is so valuable because so many people are on their network. Well, that's the same concept I would apply to this space. So this space has very little value when it is empty. The value in this space is when many entrepreneurs get together, brainstorm, and actually lift each other up. They make that network effect of creativity, innovation, those types of things. So if you're interested in entrepreneurship, there's resources here, but the more they're utilized, the more valuable they become and the better they are for you as entrepreneurs. So I'm just kind of selling the idea of thinking about the Society for Entrepreneurship, the makerspace, this space. Somehow, if you're plugged in and you're passionate about it and you think this may be the way you're going to go, take advantage of these things and make them more valuable than they are today. But now you know my story. How about that? Was it good? All right. Cool. Open for questions. Anybody can ask me any question. Yes?
You said you lost the opportunity that the guy who sold his company for 1.1
Doug, yeah.
had.
I have a better jump shot than he has, just so you know.
How did you personally lose the opportunity? Did he
So
advantage?
I would say he was thinking at a level that I was not. I was thinking tactically. I was thinking day to day, customer to customer, and he was thinking 5 years in the future. And he was saying, here's my strategy, and I think if I get not just one Rick, not just 10 Ricks, but I get hundreds of Ricks, I'm going to have something. The first time I met him when he had 30 employees, there was 300 people at his meeting, 300 people. By the time he was done, well, it was in a Holiday Inn. We had a Holiday Inn as the meeting. Then it was all the hotels in Fargo. Then the meeting was so big that the only building that could hold it was the Fargo Dome. So it was in their arena. Then that wasn't big enough. They moved it to Minneapolis. Then that wasn't big enough. They moved it to Toronto. The last time I went, we were at the Toronto baseball stadium. And they had crazy things happening. They had built a giant scaffolding thing on the pitcher's mound, and they had guys carrying kayaks up to the top, pushing off and landing in a swimming pool. They had the Olympic trampoline team bouncing around. You're walking around like, holy mackerel. They had Pat Benatar singing if you were older, you would know who that was, singing in the outfield. It was just completely off the hook, and I knew at that point in time that things had gotten pretty crazy, So that's how fast that exponential curve went for him. And it was his strategy that did it, So I missed the opportunity because I wasn't smart enough. But I was right there. I could have been smart enough but I wasn't thinking like that. David.
Why did you sell your business, and then why did you decide to come back to JMU and
Okay.
start a job like that?
So my business, being in the technology world, was kind of a stepstone business. So whenever we got really good at something, we really couldn't sustain that competitive advantage very long. It was very easy to copy. So competitors would come in and copy it, and they would drive the profit out of it. And then you would have to do the next thing, and you have to do the next thing. So we started off writing software, database design, decision support systems, accounting systems. We did accounting systems the whole time, but we branched off into some hardware pieces. We branched off into networking. We created our own DSL network in Harrisonburg. We kind of gamed Verizon, and we were able to order these things called alarm circuits, and we put our own equipment on them and turned it into DSL circuits. And we were selling, just to give you an idea, we were selling a DSL circuit for $1,500 a month that 2 years later you could get for $60. That's how fast things were changing. You know, just super fast, super fast. So you had to make money while you could, and you had to think of the next thing you were going to do. So then we moved on and we got into document management. And we were very, very big in document management. We had 6 of the top 12 employers of Virginia were our accounts. I had $1.5 million sale. I had accounts in Chicago and New Jersey, Dallas, Miami, Oregon. So I was on the plane all the time. And so that got kind of old. So I knew that I wanted to sell my business when we had a really great year. I said, this is the time. This is the time. So my income for that year was $800,000. So it was a good year. That's it. Cashing in my chips. I was unable to sell my company for 2 years. So I had made an emotional exit out of this company. I was like, hey man, whatever's broken is going to be the next guy's job to fix. So the next year I lost $300,000. And I'm like, well, it's a good thing I made some money last year because I lost a lot this year. So that was kind of it too. It was very much a feast and famine type of a business when you got into these giant deals. Because I only had like 30 employees. And I'm closing $1.5 million deal here. I'm coming in second on this one. I'm really going to miss that money, you know. So it became more about contracts and the deal than it came about really helping things get better. Stuff was stuck in legal for 6 months at a time. And I'm talking with attorneys and talking about end user license agreements and stuff. And I'm like, you know, this is just not it for me anymore. I'm ready to get off the plane and stop talking to attorneys. So that was it was a weird deal too. It was very different. So I kind of equate it to each day I ran my business was like one piece of paper added to a stack. Bam. You couldn't hardly tell, just a little piece of paper. You couldn't hardly feel it. But after 20 years of a piece of paper being put on, bam, 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 bam. When I sold the company, I was like, man, that was a heavy load I was rolling around with. We didn't notice it till it was gone, but when it was gone, I was like, man, that was a lot of stress. That was a lot of work, you know. So it was a good move. Good move. Yes?
Were you not interested in starting another business?
So, no. You know, it hadn't crossed my mind. I do have 2 real estate LLCs. So I sold my company in 2007. I invested in the stock market and real estate. Genius moves. Genius. Because what happened in 2008? So all those things combined, I was like, you know, I'm probably not going to start another business right away. Yeah. Yes?
If you had known something at our age, like something you would have done differently, what would that have been?
So I would have worked just as hard, but instead of working on tactical things, day-to-day operations, short-term, this quarter, maybe this 6 months, I would think long-term. And I would delegate the day-to-day stuff and focus all of my energy on the long-term strategy. That's what I would do.
So like coming out of college when you don't have a lot of experience in business and whatnot, how would you get help in making those big strategical decisions?
I would get a mentor. Or I would work with the Center for Entrepreneurship or a professor or somebody you feel like you would respect their opinion. And knowing that you're not asking them for the answers. You're asking them for pros and cons of your decisions, or some guidance if they think it's the right move, or what they would do slightly differently, or what have you. From a strategic standpoint, or even a practical standpoint, if you're doing something you haven't done before, like trying to get financing, or breaking into a new market, or first time with a production run of some kind, something like that. I think though the mentor, the right mentor, would get a real big win out of helping somebody succeed. I mean, that's really where it's at. Knowing you haven't done it before and admitting that you don't know what you're doing is important, and then getting somebody who's done it before, done something similar, and getting their opinion. You don't have to do it exactly like they did, but you can find out what worked for them and what didn't, and then use your own intellect to kind of apply the lessons learned on their experience to what you're trying to do. Wow, you guys are still in the room. This is awesome. Yes?
Are you planning on starting a business in the future?
I have no plans on starting a business at this time.
Do you think you ever will?
I would say, if you asked me that question 2 years ago, I would say never. But now, I would say maybe. Yes?
Tips on going about finding a mentor?
Well, the Center for Entrepreneurship can set you up with a mentor. You can talk to a faculty member or instructor that has impressed you. You're like, hey, I think that person's got a lot going on. I think I would trust their opinion, or at least like to hear their opinion on these things. That's where I would start. That's where I would start. Although, there's certainly opportunities to get a mentor from somebody in the business world, that's being successful too. So. I didn't tell you, so when I was in college and I worked for that Computer Works store, 5 years later I bought that store. I bought everything they had. So that was a thrill. So your boss is now not your boss anymore. You're actually his boss. That was a pretty heady time. Anything else? Okay, now, did you get value out of this presentation? Was it worth your time? Yes? Yes? So, November 12th, somebody much brighter than me, smarter than me, more successful than me, David Kay, is going to be giving his presentation on, the theme is idea to action, which is, an important step in entrepreneurship. Is I have an idea, I don't know what to do. I always laugh when somebody comes up to me and says, I have an idea, but I don't want to tell you. And you're like, come on, man. If it's that easy to steal, as soon as you start doing it, somebody else is going to do it anyway. My opinion, if you're afraid to articulate your ideas, they will never happen. Never happen. So come to that session, get some ideas on what it's like to take that first step, that second step. And you'll get value out of that too, probably much more value than you got today. But I'm really glad you came. So let's try to keep this entrepreneurial thing going on campus, So maybe you're sitting at the cafeteria next week and it comes up in conversation, say, hey, I went to a seminar, it was pretty decent, and there's another one in November, you ought to come. Let's try to get the buzz going on campus. That would be cool. All right? Thanks. Oh, wait, what? Yes.
Who's your mentor, and who's someone that you always look to?
So I had several mentors in my business. I actually had an informal board of directors, and that was my mentors. So my key customers and people I respected successful in business, they were my informal board of directors, and they were my mentors. And you interrupted my applause. All right. Good.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming. I'm Carol Hamilton, Director for the Center for Entrepreneurship. But what I'd like you to do before you go is to please say hello and introduce yourself to the people around you and the people you